Well, hello everybody and welcome to this video in Minecraft plugin coding tutorial series. And in today's lesson, I'm going to be actually creating settings configuration so that when you are spawning these animals, where is that? Cow, right? You can change that because in the last video, every single animal we spawned was a cow. And I'm going to show you how you can create a setting where you can actually create an entity type key that you can then set inside the game into pretty much anything in bats. And if I reload the file, now it save it into a bat. So very cool. A lot of stuff we're going to be covering today, and enjoy. So first things first, let me explain what these settings are really quickly. If you open up plugins folder, you're going to see a bunch of plugin folders for each individual plugin, inside of which, let me just open up the log perms, for example, there's a bunch of files. We are going to be dealing with the file ending with .yml extension, and if you can't see that extension, you have to Google how to show hidden file extensions. Please also make sure to have watched, I think, the first video or the second video in this series to have the right program installed. For Windows, I did recommend something called Notepad++ to open up these files. Now, if I open up this file, actually I have to make it a little bit bigger, otherwise it's distorted. The way it works is that these are the keys in blue, and in the green, these are the comments. The comments are ignored, and the keys are loaded and or saved back to the file from your plugin. The key can have any value, right? This one is a string, this one is a boolean, there can also be numbers. Now, configuration settings can have sections which can contain subsections with subsections, etc., etc. Data right here is a section. It contains this section right here, this whole thing. And you'll notice that we use 2 space character to push the files, the keys inside the section to the right. Please do not use tabs, only use spaces. Now, there's another section called pool settings, and it has these keys, in which there is another section called properties. So you can see it can stack up infinitely. Now, to create this, what we can do, I can just go inside the resources folder and I can right click it and go to new file, and I can just give it a nice name called settings.yml. And I can just already paste what I had in the plugin there. So basically the demo key says true. We can actually be deleting this key. We don't need this. And then what we have is a section called explosion, inside of which there's 2 spaces right here. There's a comment, the entity type to explode, and then there's entity type, right? Please guys, make sure do not use any weird characters here, otherwise it may not work. What I do recommend, people go for a couple of styles. Some people go for this style, some people go for this style. I personally just use this style. You can pick whichever style you wish. I think most plugins just go with this style, lowercase, and then the different words are separated by underscores. This is just my personal style. Okay, great. So we have explosion, and then we have entity type. Now, this is the file. We have to now go and create a new Java class. I'm just going to call it cow settings. That will handle loading and saving to this file. And for that reason, I already pre-created a bunch of things inside my second screen, which I'm going to be showing you how to do. So the best way to go about this is actually making this class a singleton. This will ensure safest access so that the settings are loaded only once and saved only once with the same instance, and will prevent issues. So what I do recommend, you just go and you just create a singleton like this, cow settings instance. There we go. And then get instance will be the getter to get the settings class instance. And then we can just basically just create a private constructor to hide it so that you cannot create a new settings multiple times. This is the only time you can create a new settings, right? Great. What this class also needs to have is a file in Java, which simply stands for the file on the disk. In our case, this is going to be the cowcanoon settings file with an E at the end. And also something called YamlConfiguration from Bucket, which stands for config. And this is a model in Bucket that helps us put things inside the file or load them from the file. Great. And then also what I do recommend, you basically can just model and create a copy of all these values right here. So what I can do, I can just create the entity type, the entity type or exploding type right here. And we're going to be loading and saving this in just a second. So you can basically just create all of these, just a duplicate of all of these. I'll also show you a way without it, but this is the safest one, and I prefer to have it this way. Good. So now let's implement the loading method. What we need to do for the file, we need to load a new file, right? And you can see that I use AI completion. In this case, it is correct. So it created a new file, and then getting into the plugin's main class's instance, we can call something called the data folder, which is simply this folder right here. This one, cowcanon. Inside of the folder, we're going to be working with the file called settings.yaml. And if the file does not exist, what we can do, we can simply call the get instance again, and we can save the resource, and we don't have to replace it. So Bucket already provides us with a bunch of utility methods. Now, to load the actual config, not just the file, but the actual things inside the file, we can create a new YAML configuration. And then we actually have to go into the options and enable parsing of comments. Because if you don't, what's going to happen if you say programmatically from Java, you change this, it's going to look like this, which is not good. So we need to keep these comments that we want to have there. So make sure to set parse comments to true. There we go. And then what we can do, we can simply call config.load, and then whichever file you want to use, I'm simply going to use this file for the keys to be loaded. So again, the file field is from Java, and it represents the disk file. The config file, the config class is from Bucket. It represents the content of this, which is in the YAML language. Okay, so this parser needs an actual file to load these values from. And we need to also try and catch this surrounded with a catch block, because it can throw errors, which you need to parse appropriately. For this case, for this demo, I just have to print it out. That's it. Good. Awesome. And then finally, what we can do, we can parse the entity type, we can get the value, and then we can open up the string, and we can get the key at the explosion path dot, because if you want to get subkeys, you have to open up the path using dot instead of colon, and then entity type. So explosion.entity type, this is going to return whatever is here. So this is bad. We can have the default value as cow, right? However, we need to change this to an actual entity type class, so we can just use the value of right here. Great. That's it. We have now implemented the loading mechanism, and now we can just implement the saving mechanism. There we go. And basically, yeah, it basically auto-completes what I would want to put there as well. So that's it. And also what we can do, we can have a set. So set to the path right here, and then set the value, right? And then you can also call config.set, and this will write things inside your disk file. But also, after you've set it, you also need to call save so that it actually saves, because if you don't call save, it will be only stored in a hash map inside of the bucket until you reload, and if you reload, it will be gone. Okay, great. So we have that. And now simply get exploding type right here and set exploding type just like that. And then also remember to set it inside the file just like that. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, we can get the name right here. It will work flawlessly. Awesome. I think that's it. Now we have implemented the settings. What do we have to do? We have to make sure to load it when the plugin is enabled. So cow settings, get instance load. There we go. And then inside the entity listener, we can change this entity instance of cow instead to get type equals to cow settings, get instance, get exploding type. Now this can get a bit lengthy. So the other option that people also use is just have it static as a field, right? And then, yeah, you can just do the same. And then if you want to access it, you just go and you call it like this. It is shorter. However, the issue with this is that, you know, you can accidentally set the field without and forget that you will do nothing. It will actually not save. Because if you have a static approach, then what you can do You can do something like this, not knowing that it won't save into a file, right? So I do not recommend this for beginners because beginners can create beginner mistakes and then be confused. So do not use that. Just be a little bit verbose here. Just use all these helpers and instances and singletons. They'll help you produce higher quality code, especially for beginners. Great. So we have that now. And I guess that's it in this class, in the entity listener. Guys, if you don't have this, please watch the previous videos where we created this. And then inside the command right here, we can find the if args length is more than 1, right? Because what can happen here, I can call /cow, then set, and then let's say I want this to be a zombie, for example. So if the argument's length is more than 1 and arguments 0 is the set argument, then we basically want to parse the entity type from this using a try and catch block. There we go. So we can do that. Yeah, perfect. I guess the AI is very smart today. And then if there's an illegal argument exception, right? If I type in something like this, we obviously just want to send the message to the player saying, hey, invalid entity type, and then return true because it actually, the command actually completed without issues. It was called legally. However, there was a problem within the command. If I return false, Bucket will simply display the usage message. In this case, yeah, we can also change this to baby or set. There we go. Entity type. Just like that. Perfect. And last but not least, so we have the entity type right here. We need to go to cow settings, get the instance, and then edit the exploding type, right? And then right here, instead of spawning cow, we can just have a living entity right here, player get world, spawn entity, and then instead of having cow, we're just gonna go into cow settings, get instance, get exploding. And I guess we need to cast it into a living entity because this one will only return entity, but we pretty much know that this is a living entity. Also, here's a great tip. So we have to make sure that the type is spawnable and the type is alive, right? And if it isn't, then we're going to return it. So because as you notice, the entity type has things like area effect cloud, which you can't really spawn, right? So we have to make sure that only actual animals can be placed there. Great. And I guess the baby argument, we have to also make sure that the entity is ageable right here, and then we can call it onageable. Just like that. And if you don't know in Java how the casting works, guys, I do recommend you check out my training course called Project Orient, because there I'll explain everything about what I'm just typing in terms of syntax, in terms of these brackets, in terms of casting and everything, right? Because you guys need to have solid Java understanding. So check the link in the description, and you know, you'll be thanking me later, because I know it can get a bit confusing if you don't understand the mechanisms behind this code and the intricacies of it. Great. So that one, now we can only use that if the entity actually can have babies, right? If it isn't, if it can't, then we're just going to return it. There we go. And then finally, we're going to spawn it. Awesome, guys. I guess that's it. Now, before we go, I also want to edit the tab completion. So let me just edit it right here. And then we can actually only complete the entity types that begin with the letter that we're trying to tab complete. So if I go and I call -cow/cow set, and I type in zom, and then I hit tab, it will auto complete only to zombie, but it will not suggest cow because it does not start with it. So the way we're going to do this, we're going to get the first argument, and you can also make sure to uppercase it because the entity type is uppercased. And then I guess, again, we can just rely on the AI for now. I do not recommend AI as complete beginner. I explained that earlier, but for now it works. So we can just create a stream from the entity types, and then the filter, yeah, we can just filter the spawnable and alive types, and then those that begin with their name. Then we can map that into, we can convert the stream of entity type classes into a list of strings, because this needs a list of string, the auto completion. And then this right here, needs to be like that. So we need to collect it, use collectors to list to convert this into a list of strings. It's a bit confusing. Again, that's why I do recommend knowing Java very well before this. But basically, this is going to just filter the entity types, turn it into a list of strings right here. That's it. Nothing major. Awesome, guys. Let's go into the game, shall we? And let's test it out. Okay, guys. So make sure you don't have any cow canoon file folder. You should not have it. And if you don't have it, the plugin will actually copy the settings file from inside your jar. And as you can see inside, it says entity type.cow. Let me go into the game and let me test if it works. And if I right click, yeah, there we go. Now it works. Awesome. Now if I type in cow, it should autocomplete baby and set, but it doesn't because I forgot to have this implemented right here. Just a small mistake. Yeah, that's it. However, if I type set, now it will try to autocomplete all of these things. All of these things. And these are only the valid values. So I can do volve, but if I mistype, it says invalid entity type volve, right? Or I can do, say, pig. And now it displayed the usage message. Oh, okay, great. So after it's been set, we were supposed to return true, and we were actually supposed to send the sender a message that it was actually set. A small mistake of mine, there we go. But now I can open up the file, and if I reload it, there we go, it is now pig. So it's been properly changed, and now if I go and I type cow, a pig is spawned, right? Great. And if I have any other animal, it should not work. However, if I click pig, it will not work. Jesus. Okay, so basically, because of this, we're casting the entity to cow, and we don't have to. We can just do this directly like this, get rid of the cow, and now it's going to work for any other entity inside the entity listener class. Sorry, guys, small mistake. Awesome, guys. After reloading, if I right-click, there we go. Oh my goodness, the pig has exploded. Awesome. So I guess that is it for today's video. This is how to work with settings. I showed you how to load this value and also how to save it. You can obviously just duplicate this approach for multiple values. You can have gigantic settings file. Now you know how to do this. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to go deeper, check the link in the description for Project Orion, which is a full 7-week Minecraft coding program, including a full Java coding class with me twice per week, sitting live, answering any questions, and tons of pre-recorded content just like that one, but even deeper because we have more time there. Anyways, guys, I'm talking too much. Check out the link in the description. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.